Hello. Today we are going to be back in John chapter 8. I did briefly talk about John chapter 8 earlier. Today we're going to skip right down to verse 12. As I mentioned, I already kind of talked about these first 11 verses and the purpose of the brackets around them and some of the, different translations. So you can go back and watch that other video on John chapter 8. I want to begin in John chapter 8, verse 12. And this is a very lengthy chapter, obviously. And so we're not going to be able to go through it verse by verse. So what we're going to try to do is just try to highlight a few things, and we'll see how that goes this morning. I want you to, first of all, just kind of notice with me some of these words that I've highlighted here that keep reoccurring. There's this concept that we're going to see of what is true or truth in this chapter. There's a concept, there's this thread running through about what has been heard. We'll talk more about that as well. We'll talk more about this idea of this word that occurs, the word. And then we'll also talk about, if you haven't noticed, this keeps the one that has occurred the most times is this word Father. In these few verses, John chapter 8, beginning in verse 12, going through the rest of the chapter, verse 59, the word Father occurs 20 times. So we're going to talk about that as well. But I want to go back with you to beginning here in verse 26, and I want to draw your attention to a couple of things. Jesus says to them, I have much to say about you and much to judge, but he who sent me is true, and I declare to the world what I have heard from him. So there is this concept then that Jesus says that he is going to speak what he has heard from the Father. And if you skip down here, notice verse 38, which is kind of in contrast to what Jesus is going to do. John verse 38 says, I speak what I have seen with my Father. So again, Jesus speaking. And you do what you have heard from your Father. So again, just look at verse 26 and verse 38 and notice this contrast here. Jesus says, he who sent me is true. I declare to the world what I have heard from him. So Jesus ties what he is doing, what he is teaching back to the Father, what I have heard from him. Jesus ties what they are doing with their Father. We'll talk more about that in a moment. I also want you to see that Jesus ties his words. And again, what are Jesus's words? Jesus's words, go back to verse 26. Jesus's words are those things that he has heard from the Father. So Jesus's words came from the Father. That's what he's heard from the Father. But look at what he says concerning his words in verse 31 and 32. So Jesus said to the Jews who believed in him, so Jesus speaking, if you abide, and this word means to stay in there. This means you are going to remain in these words. For if you abide in my word, you are truly my disciples. So if you remain in the word of Jesus, which he heard from his Father, verse 26, you are truly my disciples. As a result of this, he says, look at what his word that you're remaining in, what's going to happen. He says, you will know the truth, and look at what's going to happen, and the truth will set you free. So first of all, Jesus speaks of the fact that his word will set them free. Look at what else Jesus says concerning his word. Look at verse 51. Truly, truly, I say to you, if anyone keeps my words, he will never see death. So first of all, verse 31 and 32, his words will set them free, will bring freedom, right? We saw that back here, verse 32. If you abide in my words, you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. So where does the truth come from? From abiding in the word of Jesus Christ. That truth will set you free. Verse 51, if anyone keeps my word, he will what? Never see death. Verse 52, the Jews said to him, now we know that you have a demon. Abraham died, as did the prophets, yet you say, if anyone keeps my word, he will never taste death. Jesus says, if you keep my word, you're never going to taste death. The Jews who heard him say this understood the significance of this. And so Jesus says, if you keep my word, you're going to be set free. You're going to be set free, number one. If you keep my word, you're never going to see death, number two. There's also a major thread running through here that we already alluded to, this idea of the Father. Let's spend a few moments looking at this very important thread. And it begins all the way back here in verse 12. And again, this word repeats itself 20 times. So again, verse 16, Yet even if I do judge, my judgment is true, for it is not I alone who judge, but I and the Father who sent me. So first of all, Jesus claims that the Father sent him. He claims also, verse 18, I am the one who bears witness about myself, and the Father who sent me bears witness about me. So not only does he claim the Father sent him, he also claims the Father bears witness about him. Jesus tells them, you don't know me or my Father. So all of these things about my Father, right? The Jews were talking about who is their Father, who is my Father. Jesus flat out says, we'll come back to that in a second. Look at verse 27. They did not understand that he had been speaking to them about the Father. Skip down here, verse 38. I speak of what I have seen with my Father, and you do what you have heard from your Father. So Jesus again is claiming somebody is his Father, my Father. It is the one who sent him. They say, Jesus said, you do what you have heard from your Father. So Jesus is clearly making a distinction between his Father and their Father. They now respond to this idea of who is their Father. They answered him, Abraham is our father. Now Jesus denies this. Now he doesn't deny that they are not biologically his descendants. We'll even see that he makes that point. I know you're his descendants, but Jesus says you're not really his children. And Jesus' comment is extremely important. Look at verse 39 again. They answered him, Abraham is our father. Jesus said to them, if you were Abraham's children, you would be doing the works Abraham did. What is Jesus implying? First of all, he's implying you're not truly Abraham's children. Number one. Number two, he's implying they're not living, acting, doing the things that Abraham did. So this is a very important point that we need to just take note of. Jesus is making a point that if you are truly the child of somebody, you do the things they did. You live like they did. You think like they did. Now watch what he continues to say, verse 40. But now you seek to kill me, a man who has told you the truth that I heard from God. What did he say? Where did he say he got his message earlier? Right? Verse 26. I have much to say to you. Sorry, verse 26. I have much to say about you and much to judge. But he who sent me is true, and I declare to the world that what I have heard from him. So Jesus says the Father sent him. And he's also making the point then that God is the one who sent him. God is his Father. A man who has told you from the truth what I have heard from God. This is not what Abraham did. You are doing the works that your father did. So again, Jesus denies that Abraham is their father, yet he is clearly indicating they have a father. Right? Verse 38 says, you are doing what you have heard from your father. Verse 38, verse 41, you are doing the works your father did. They said to him, we were not born of sexual immorality. We have one Father, even God. So Jesus tells them, you're not doing what your father did. They're now going back and forth as to who their father is. They're claiming God as their father. Jesus now says, verse 42. So first of all, Jesus has already denied, look at this. Jesus has denied that Abraham is their father. Now he's going to deny that God is their father. Verse 42, Jesus said to them, if God were your father. See the same idea here? If you were Abraham's children, you're not. You're not doing what Abraham did. Verse 42, if God were your father, you would love me, for I came from God and I am here. I came not of my own accord, but he sent me. Skip down to look at verse 44. Look at this. This is an absolutely powerful statement. And man, it had to hit like a hammer to these Jews. Verse 44, Jesus said, you are of your father. So now who does he finally say is their father? He already said it wasn't Abraham. He already said it wasn't God. So now who does he say is their father? You are of your father, the devil. Man, that is powerful. Man, that is offensive if someone believes they are a child of God, isn't it? You are of your father, the devil, and your will is to do your father's desire. He was a murderer from the beginning and does not stand in the truth because there is no truth in him. When he lies, he speaks of his own character, for he is a liar and the father of lies. So here Jesus tells them, you are of your father, the devil. Now, Jesus, again, is not denying that they are Abraham's descendants. He flat out will tell them, he'll acknowledge that, here in a minute, he'll acknowledge that they are his descendants. but they are not truly his children. This brings up a very important point that we're going to just briefly mention. Jesus is making a point that if you were the children of Abraham, you would live and act like Abraham did. If you were a child of God, you would love Jesus. Why? Because Jesus was sent from God. So Jesus is making a very powerful point. And again, this whole thread of Father runs through here, and you should go back and read this chapter in more detail. But what I want to leave with you is this question really that Jesus has been kind of alluding to and dealing with. And the question is this, is really, who was the father of these Jews? Well, Jesus says it's not really Abraham. Yeah, you might be biologically from him. He acknowledges that. But you're not his children, or else you would be doing what he was doing. You're not a child of God, or else you would be loving the one who God sent. So who is really their father? He says it is, again, go back and you look here. He says, you are of your father, the devil. Man, that is harsh. You are of your father, the devil. Why are they children of the devil? Because they have the same will that he does. Because just like the devil is a liar, they are liars. And so it begs the question, as we talk about this and try to make a brief application to ourselves, who is our father? Who do we look like? Are we doing the things that Abraham did? Because Paul will say in Romans chapter 2, Romans chapter 9, that we're his children. We're not biologically Jews, probably most of us who are watching this, probably not biologically of Jewish descent, but we are children of Abraham by faith. We're children of Abraham by the things we do. We're children of God because we love God. If we're not doing and acting like God the Father and his child Abraham, then it begs the question, who is our father? There's only two options really. Either God's our father or Satan's our father. And so the question that I leave with you this morning is, who do you look like? Which father do you resemble most? Thank you very much for your time. You guys have a blessed day.